Let's get into it. One of you said that I clap like a Democrat, and I will not put up with that type of slander, okay? I'm working on it here. I'm working on it. Don't worry about it. Anyways, guys, Sold Not For Sale podcast, episode 719. And what we're talking about today is a very important topic. You know, in America, right, there's a whole world that everybody's telling you to focus on. But border crisis, right? Inflation, administration, just terrible, gas prices, food prices. But then there's also the drug epidemic that's going on. Philadelphia, California, certain parts, right? Baltimore. There's so much of this stuff, and it spreads if you just sit back and allow it, or just pretend it doesn't exist because you're focused on what's going on in the Middle East. This type of stuff spreads. So right now, Joe Rogan and Shane Dorian are going to be talking about the epidemic. And as they're talking, I'm just going to be shifting through some other scenes so you can really see what's going on. Because I love when Joe Rogan talks about something, but I want you guys to be able to see it as well. And there's going to be one thing that I'm going to show you after they're done talking, because they're talking about TRANQ. And I'm going to show you the effects of that when they're done speaking. Let's get into it. Very interesting stuff.
Like right across the street from where I was staying at the Hyatt Killer Hotel, right across the street, like 3 incredible restaurants. Felt completely safe. And like when I'm in California, there are zombies everywhere. Dude, the fentanyl problem is so out of control. It's insane.
Yeah, we're fucked.
We're fucked.
Did you see this about fentanyl recently?
Mexico Sinaloa cartel's message to members: stop making fentanyl or die. Good.
Wow.
Crime group yields to intensifying U.S. law enforcement pressure and is kidnapping or killing producers who defy its ban on trafficking the opioid. Good.
Interesting.
Good. I'm with them.
I wonder why.
Well, I mean, it's fucking up their business. Their
Right.
business is selling cocaine. And then these guys make fentanyl and they cut the cocaine with
Right.
fentanyl and people are dying. And then law enforcement pressure starts ramping up. And then what they're really worried about is an invasion. The military decides to go after the cartel. The cartels are fucked.
Right.
I mean, they start airstriking cartels with jets.
Gnarly.
That's a wrap.
Yeah. Crazy. How crazy is it how like the fentanyl these days is mixed with TRANQ, or it's TRANQ? Have you heard of that?
What's TRANQ?
I can't believe you haven't heard of this. TRANQ with a Q. So TRANQ is fentanyl mixed with a horse tranquilizer. So the horse tranquilizer makes the fentanyl last much longer, is my understanding. Jamie's probably looking it up right now. But the TRANQ is a horse tranquilizer. They mix it with fentanyl, I think, to make it last longer and make it more powerful. And the fucked up thing is it's so toxic, they all inject it. It's so toxic that it's so poisonous in your body that your body's trying to get rid of it. So it creates these massive sores where the drug is trying to get out.
I saw that in Russia.
Yeah, and people no, it's here now, dude, big time. People are getting sepsis and having to get their limbs amputated. It's really, really gnarly.
Go back to that article that you were just posting.
DA like message about
Okay,
it.
Xylazine.
Says, Xylazine is making the deadliest drug threat in our country that our country has ever faced. Fentanyl even deadlier, said Administrator Milgram. DEA seized xylazine and fentanyl mixtures in 48 of 50 states. The DEA laboratory system is reporting that in 2022, approximately 23% of fentanyl powder and 7% of fentanyl pills seized by the DEA contain xylazine. Fuck.
Yeah, I have a weird, I don't know if obsession's the right word, but I like watching like drug documentaries and like interviews with like drug addicts and like, DEA agents, like all that kind of stuff is just kind of fascinating to me because I don't have a drug problem, and it's just interesting to me how people like will choose to go down that road over and over and over, even though it just seems like the worst thing ever. But the addicts, when they talk about being on fentanyl, they'll choose the xylazine now with the fentanyl because it's much better. And they know they're going to die from it like really soon, and they keep choosing it. It's pretty wild. And if you're a heroin addict, you can't even find heroin these days. You can't get heroin. It's all fentanyl.
Really?
Yeah. I've had a few different friends die from fentanyl. They thought they were buying a baggie of cocaine and partying and just dropped dead.
Yeah, well, that happened to a group of comedians in L.A. recently.
It's so messed up.
It's fucking horrible. And it's the #1 killer, I think, of people in like 18 to 49, something nuts like that. It's like 100,000 people a year dying of overdoses.
What do you think about parents sending test kits with kids to go to parties so they can test the drugs?
Well, it's certainly better than not testing it and taking it.
Right.
Obviously, the best thing would be to don't take any drugs. But, especially when kids are drinking, you're fucking, all your judgment goes out the window. You're not thinking straight. You're drunk. And then someone offers Coke and there's peer pressure. And you're like, I'll try it. And then next thing you know, you're dead. You know, if there was a method of testing, and I know they use that a lot at raves, because that was one of the issues at raves, was that people were buying MDMA, and that was laced with fentanyl.
For sure.
They would wind up overdosing with that.
Yeah.
That's fucking scary shit, man. Also, parents are sending their kids Narcan or Narcan.
Narcan.
To help them survive an overdose.
Well, and to help other people.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of kids in Portland are being trained and sending their kids to school with Narcan, and they're trained to give Narcan to heroin addicts or to fentanyl addicts, which is crazy. And that's the other thing they say in those documentaries. They always interview the addicts and they say, how many times have you or they say, have you OD'd before? And they're all like, yeah, of course. And they're, how many times? And they all say countless. They don't know. Imagine ODing so many times where you literally do not know how many times it's been, and then going straight back and getting high again, like with a needle.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's a real crisis.
Yeah, it really is a crisis. I mean, you have kids. I have kids, so these are things that are like totally on the front burner for me. Like, to me, I'm never sending my kids to a party with test kits. That's not like, I feel like talking to them from a super young age, totally having super transparent heart-to-heart talks with them about friends that I've had that thought they were getting one drug and it was laced with this shit that is completely deadly and dropping dead. Just drugs are different, man. They're not how it was when we were kids. When we were kids, like, people would experiment. It was completely normal. Like, I feel like those days are over in some aspects, you know?
For sure. Well, the real problem, and this is a very uncomfortable discussion, but the real problem is that drug prohibition has made criminals the only source of drugs. And you have no idea what you're getting. And that's the problem. And if you make drugs legal, all drugs legal, you're going to have a bunch of people that are doing drugs that wouldn't do drugs if they were illegal. So you have that problem. And so how do you mitigate that? How long does it take before the dust settles and life normalizes? Because if you think about the prohibition in the United States, prohibition of alcohol in the United States propped up the mob. Everybody knows that. It's a fact. It's widely, openly discussed. The only people that were selling the alcohol were the people that were criminals. They made a shitload of money. They amassed massive power because of that. And they used it. They used it to control cities. Until they got infiltrated and the mob got broken up, they for a long time they reaped the rewards of the power that they started to develop during Prohibition. And that's exactly what you're seeing with the cartels. The reason why the cartels have so much power is because there's so much demand for illegal drugs in the United States.
And that's not going away.
Well, it's not going away.
No.
People have always wanted to do drugs. There's always going to be a certain lost segment of our population that wants to escape reality with some fucking hardcore shit that puts them in a trance.
Yeah, well, they're finding it.
Yeah.
If they want that, it's everywhere.
What is Hawaii's problems? What is like on the Big Island? What are the main drug problems?
I mean, it's been meth for the most part for like the last 20 years. That's taken a toll. There's no doubt about it. Meth has been like probably the biggest problem, but now it's turning into fentanyl. One of the little girls in my daughter's circle of friends was on Instagram Live. This was like 2 years ago. A girl was like 12 years old. She was like on Instagram Live. No one was home at her house, and she went in her mom's medicine cabinet, and she found a little baggie of white powder.
Oh, God.
And chopped it up in a line on Instagram Live. She just had her friends or whatever, like her 10, 15 friends that follow her, like a little girl, and was like, "Dare me?" And she snorted it. It was pure fentanyl.
Oh, God.
And it turns out her mom was selling it. That was on the Big Island in my daughter's little circle of friends.
And she died.
That's happening everywhere, man. That's my little tiny town that I feel is like a little town, like a little farm town that grows coffee, and like that's where you surf and hang out. It's like super mellow, but somehow that's really happening. Like those drugs have infiltrated like every last little corner of our country. It's wild, man. Wild.
It is wild. And the alternative doesn't seem appealing either. The alternative of making heroin and cocaine legal at stores, that scares the shit out of me too.
Yeah. It's weird that it's like regional. Like it's really bad in Canada. Horrible. The drug epidemic. Like I was in not Toronto, what's the other giant city on the West Coast?
Vancouver?
Vancouver. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of homeless people, homeless fentanyl zombies all over these like big city blocks, like thousands of them, like, you know, slumped over. Have you seen that when they get slumped over? Mm-hmm. That's the TRANQ. So that's a tranquilizer thing. So they get super high and they're tranquilizer. So they basically are like, you know, they don't fall, but they like swaying. But I feel like in Canada, it's huge. In the US, it's huge. But I was in France and Spain. None of that.
Yeah.
None of that.
Well, they didn't have the same opioid crisis that we had caused by the Sackler family and what they did with the OxyContin pills, where they just made, you know, who knows how many hundreds of thousands of people addicts in this country.
Crazy.
If not millions. I mean, how many millions of lives are ruined? Because not just the people that but their families, everything gets devastated. Everything gets ruined.
The most fascinating part, I think, about that series was, I mean, there were so many fascinating things about that series, but there was a window of time where no one knew what it was, what OxyContin was. No one knew.
Yeah.
Just had his name, and
Yeah.
it made you feel good, and it like took your pain away and took you out of whatever stress you were feeling. Now we know about it. Like there's kind of no excuse now for like the kids coming up that are educated. Like, hey, opioids, they're fucking deadly. You know, OxyContin, all these like any of these opioids are like highly addictive. They're pretty much all going to kill you or lead you down this horrible road to something horrible. But there was a window of time where literally no one knew what that stuff was. I remember it went through not my whole, but a group of my friends all got hooked on that junk like right away when no one knew what OxyContin was.
Yeah, well, that documentary, that series, the Netflix series, Painkiller, is absolutely terrifying because it shows you how corrupt the system is and how they were able to prescribe this and make this thing and pass it where it can be prescribed to people. Where when we were kids, when I was a kid, no one did heroin. It wasn't like an issue. Like if someone was doing heroin, that guy's off the rails. Like, oh, you hear Mike's doing heroin? Jesus.
Yeah.
Like Mike's gone. You would think that guy's gone.
Totally.
He's suicidal. He's just fucking shooting up. Like I knew a couple comedians that did heroin, and I was like, oh my God. And they wind up dying. The two that I know that I was pretty aware of, they wind up dying from heroin. And it's just, heroin was rare.
Yeah.
And then.
And a big choice.
Yeah.
It was a big choice.
Yeah. But now it's just.
And doctors were prescribing it. Thousands and thousands and thousands of doctors were prescribing it.
Yeah.
Because it was believed to be not addictive and safe.
Yeah. Well.
Where else have we heard that that's safe and effective?
Yeah.
Jeez, dude.
I know we never learned. We never learned. Well, some people learn.
Never learn, never learn. You guys want to see what I was talking about? He's talking about TRANQ. It's a real thing. This guy's on it. This guy's going to get it currently in this clip. And he's reaping the destruction that it does on your body.
Our heads, fucking getting hit by cars. I've seen it all because, you know, it's that strong. It don't matter. I mean, even me the other day, I got fucked up to the point where I don't get fucked up like that, you know? I'm on a long run, I got a high tolerance, and I did a few shots, and I kept waking up into like doing like into backpedaling, like doing back steps, falling over into someone's like yard or fucking on the sidewalk, and that shit don't happen to me, you know. So who knows? It's like, and the shit, the dope on the corners, the potency changes every day. Like, look, you know how much these blocks sell of dope and TRANQ slash Fetty all day, every day. They're pushing so many keys. I mean, like, I don't even know how to split. A stick's 12 bundles. So, I mean, they're cracking sticks all the way from morning shift to the graveyard. I can only imagine how much work they're going through. So, you know, people will be like, oh, this shit fell off. That shit fell off. Now this is good. This is good. You don't know what you're really getting for it.
Yeah, you don't.
And the main thing is, it's eating people apart. You know, I'm sure you'll have, including myself. You know, this is a year. Now it looks like that, and real fucking bad because I keep going in it. I do speedballs with my fentanyl and TRANQ.
So tell them what speedballs is.
That's what most people are doing. Now what happens...
Dope and powder, or,
yes.
or not even dope, but
dope,
xylazine.
yeah, that's what we call it, dope.
Dope, yeah.
So, that shit, it collapses your veins. So, you know, you got nowhere to go. Okay, so me, I tried everywhere. I'm vicious. Tried my fucking... I mean, I used to hit my forehead, my groin, my legs, my feet. Fucking...
Anywhere you can find a vein.
Anywhere there was a vein, I could get.
Because all the ones in your arms collapsed.
Collapsed. Yep. And they're still collapsed to this day.
Wow. That's what they were talking about. Just so you know. I know you guys like to see the clip first, so figured I'd show that to you. But that's the effects of this TRANQ stuff that they're talking about. That's going on. Right? There's a lot of stuff going on in the Middle East, and you know, God save the innocent people there. But there is a whole lot that is going on inside your country. And I don't know why all mainstream media tends to focus on is what's going outside the country. I do not understand it. It doesn't make sense. If you're looking for clicks, something like this could get clicks. If you're looking to spread awareness, something like this people need to be aware of. If you're looking to cover something, there's so much. This is one guy. There's for sure millions of people like this, to this degree even. That's not an overstatement. So why not just focus on this? You know? So many politicians have come forward with their stance on Israel and Palestine. I've made a bunch of videos, Israel and Palestine. But what about this? You know? It really makes you wonder. I've gotten into the mode. Well, I've always been, this whole thing has been based on me asking questions, but you know, I really, that question pops up. And I'm not for open air prisons, and I'm not anti-Semitic, but it just, what's going on? This is a huge problem. And it's not just huge. Like, I have a heart for this. You know, I'm a recovering addict myself. I never did anything like this ever in my life, but I was wrapped up in an addiction for at least 20 years, at least. You know, I'm sober for a year on October 23rd. It's great. You know, I'm a father, husband, all this great stuff. It's fantastic. Things I never thought I'd do. And, you know, I have a heart for this gentleman, you know, just based on, you know, knowing that I could have, you know, in a different circumstance with a different parent, I could have ended up like this, but also even more so. And Joe was touching on it at the beginning of the clip. Who's bringing this stuff in? Who's bringing this stuff in? You know, Tim Kennedy even touched on it a little bit in a video I just did, where he was talking about how the immigration and the trafficking is kind of meshed together. You know, it's both happening at the same time. It's like, if this is the whole border, it's like some of it's happening here, some immigrants there, and they're trying to they're kind of getting past in all the confusion, which is crazy, which only shows again how important minding and taking care of the southern border really is. Like, I get it. There's war going on. There's war going on everywhere. Right now, as you're sitting watching YouTube and I'm just making a video, there is someone in Africa and there's a warlord and there's all sorts of horrible things going on. And that person is about to suffer through it. And that's happening in Ukraine, and it's happening in Russia. Even outside of the war, there's just somebody who's encountering a gang member or something. It's happening everywhere. But you can't have your eyes on all those things at the same time. That wouldn't make sense. That'd be too much of a burden on you. But this is actually happening where you're from. This is actually happening where you're, like, if you're from Philadelphia, this is Kensington, Philadelphia. If you're from Philadelphia, if you're near Philadelphia, this is happening near you. That gentleman with the hand that looks like that, that's happening near you currently. And even if you're not near it, it's happening in a state. If it happens in one state, it can happen in another state. Wouldn't this be the thing to focus on? And again, I get it. I said this at the very beginning. Like, if you're of Jewish descent, obviously your heart is in Israel. You know, your heart and your focus is there, and it should be. Especially if you have family there, friends there. I have friends there. I focus on it to that extent and want to make sure, I hope my friends are safe and they're not going through any terrible tragedies, atrocities that have happened. But also, there's this. And when you get to the government part of it, it's like, I get it. You got $100 billion for that. I understand completely. But it sounds like a big number coming from me as I'm saying it. But if you're saying it to the government, at least just put $100 billion into this. I get it. You know, Ben Shapiro had the mindset of, oh, these people do it to themselves. That's what he was saying. These people do it to themselves. So that's completely different. They do it to themselves. Kind of, at first. But when you're caught up in it, oh, man. You could do it with your eyes closed. You could do it involuntarily. You're just doing it. You have to. To think with the mindset of these people are doing it to themselves. These people who are from where I'm from, who are from the same soil as me, they do it to themselves. These people over here that are in a completely different part of the world, they need help. That is such a wild notion to try and inject into American citizens. I don't know. I just thought that would be an interesting thing to cover. I'd like to just go through this really quick. If you're still watching this channel that you just saw, that this gentleman that's on the screen right here, this video is from a channel called Life Unscripted Philly. So these gentlemen are doing some important work, in my opinion, real important. This is just from 2 months ago, and believe me, they have not cleaned it up since. It's called Kensington Avenue - Addicted and Homeless Interview - Hustle Life. And then the other one that I was watching here is called I Investigated the City of Real Life Zombies. Again, Philadelphia, Kensington. Then this one here is just simply called America - What They Don't Show You - 08/28/23. And then this one here, that was just New York. That was just the New York Post. Shocking videos of zombie-like addicts, Ground Zero. I'm telling you, man, there's other things. I'm just, and again, not to take, hard away from that, but this is going on where you're at. And it is like this gentleman here. When we talk about the country eroding, this is it. This is it. Because if this gentleman was in a proper, Jordan Peterson talks about this all the time. If this gentleman was in a proper functioning mindset, this gentleman could work. This gentleman could take on a wife. This gentleman could take on a family. If he could be good, then the woman that he's with is protected and sheltered. The kids that he has get raised and reared properly. And those people, that family, injects goodness into their community. And if you can times that by millions, you strengthen a whole state, you strengthen a whole nation. And I'm not going to say easily. It's very hard. But it becomes easier with focus. I don't get how you couldn't have Nikki Haley be like, you know what, there's a whole epidemic and let's go into these streets. Literally a 30, 40, 2-hour drive. Let's go into these streets. Let's fix these people. Let's help these people. Imagine Lindsey Graham with the same vigor of going to war at the drop of a hat decided, you know what? These streets need fixing. There's people in these streets. There are good men and women in these streets. They need fixing. They need help. Imagine that. How great would that be? But no one's doing that. I wonder why. I really do. Because again, this gentleman right here, this is the erosion. That right there is the erosion. As he erodes and the community around him erodes and turns to this deviancy, that whole town, that whole city, that whole state, and then that spreads. It really does. And then again, who's bringing it in? There's just so many problems that America has. To be focused anywhere else, in my opinion, is silly. I know America first, like Tucker Carlson said, is a very loaded term, but America first. Anyways, like the video, subscribe, I'm out.